All right, so one of the things you might need to do is to provide some validity for various scales. In order to do that, most of the time what we're going to be running are correlations, or at least that's one way we can ascertain validity. The type of validity we'd be looking at in that case would be either convergent or divergent validity. So in order to run a correlation, we'll go to Analyze, Correlate, Bivariate. In this case, let's say we want to look at the empowerment scale. It shouldn't be related to age, so that'll help us with some divergent validity. Wouldn't want that to correlate with age. We also don't think that it should correlate with depression, but let's say we thought that it should correlate with health orientation, whether or not someone's oriented towards healthy behaviors in their life. At that point, we've popped over the variables that we need, and it's selected for Pearson's. That's what it defaults to. And all we need to do is go ahead and click on OK once we've pulled over the variables that we want. So what we're looking at here is the empowerment scale. We have age and depression for divergent validity. Those are things it should not be related to. And health orientation is something we think it will be related to. Granted, they're not the same construct, so we wouldn't expect a high correlation for that one, but some positive correlation. And now we have our output. We'd discuss these the way we would any correlation. So make sure to think about all the things you need to talk about for correlations. Direction, strength, level of significance, an actual description of the correlation, variance accounted for, all of those things you need to talk about. But then you also want to think about how are these doing in providing validity for your scale. So we see that there is a relationship between empowerment and age. It's a slight negative relationship. It is highly statistically significant, but that has more to do with the n size than the level of correlation. That's not a huge amount of variance accounted for. I would say that that does provide divergent validity for the empowerment scale. It's not overly related to age. It has a weak negative correlation. Same with depression, even a little bit weaker, negative correlation with depression. Now both of these are statistically significant, and both of them say that as empowerment goes up, age goes down. So people who are younger feel more empowered, and people who are less depressed feel more empowered, or people who feel more empowered are less depressed. And it has a slight positive correlation, just as weak, with health orientation. That doesn't provide as much convergent validity as we might have wanted to see, but they're clearly separate constructs, so we wouldn't expect them to be overly correlated with each other. And that would be the sorts of things you'd talk about and the process for running those correlations. If we had some sort of criterion variable to compare this to, so we had some sort of criterion that showed people were or were not empowered. We had some nice dichotomous empowerment variable, so they were assessed by an independent clinician and categorized as either empowered or not empowered. And then we could use that variable. So maybe it's clinician empowerment decision variable, whatever you want to call it, that has a dichotomous data, either a 0 or a 1, most likely. 0 for not empowered, 1 for empowered. And we could then compare that or correlate that with the level of empowerment. The process would look exactly the same. So we would just go through and go analyze, correlate, bivariate. We'd pop over empowerment and the psychologist empowerment decision variable. We'd be looking at basically a correlation. In that case, what it actually returns when you select Pearson correlation is a point by serial correlation, because you have one dichotomous variable and one continuously scaled variable. But the formula works the same. So if you put in a dichotomous variable and calculate a Pearson's correlation, you actually get a point by serial correlation. Those will inherently be slightly lower correlations simply because of the restricted range that's available on a dichotomous variable as compared to continuously scaled variables. So those will automatically be a little bit lower, but we would expect that there should be a high relationship between a scale of empowerment and a clinician's decision on whether or not someone is empowered. So good luck.